Myrtle Warren, more commonly known as Moaning Myrtle, calls Hogwarts her home. She's one of several ghosts who live within the castle. When a witch or wizard dies, they can choose to move on or stay back. Myrtle is one of the witches who decided to stay on Earth as a ghost. This is the life of Myrtle Warren. Myrtle Elizabeth Warren was born in the late 1920s to Mr. and Mrs. Warren. It was quite a surprise when Myrtle started showing signs of magical abilities, and even more so when a representative from Hogwarts arrived at their home. They came to give Myrtle her Hogwarts Acceptance Letter and to explain to her family that she was a witch. The Warren family were all muggles, so this was very new and strange to them. With all of her supplies gathered from Diagon Alley, she would board the Hogwarts Express to start a new chapter in her life. In the extraordinary enchanted environment of the Great Hall, Myrtle would be sorted into Ravenclaw House. Ravenclaws value wit, wisdom, and learning from the students, so Myrtle must have had a deep desire to discover knowledge when the Sorting Hat placed her. What was supposed to be a wonderful and magical time for Myrtle quickly started going downhill. For some reason, students began to make fun of her and giving her a hard time. The worst offender was a girl named Olive Hornby. Myrtle had no close friends and became incredibly lonely with no one to confide in. When Myrtle was 14 years old, things became even worse at Hogwarts. The Chamber of Secrets was believed to have been open, and students were mysteriously injured. Several had been taken to the hospital wing after being found petrified. One day, Olive decided to be particularly cruel to Myrtle, teasing her harshly about her glasses. Myrtle would lock herself into one of the stalls in the girls' bathroom to cry in privacy. In between her sobs, she started to hear a sound on the other side of the stall's door. She couldn't quite understand what was being said and thought it must have been a different language. Then she realized she was hearing a boy's voice, so she unlocked the door to tell him to go use his own toilets. However, Myrtle didn't get the chance to tell this mysterious boy to leave. She saw a pair of great big yellow eyes. Then her body seized up and she felt like she floated away. She died, and her body fell to the ground. It took hours for anyone to find her like that. She returned as a ghost and waited in the bathroom for someone to come in. The headmaster, Armando Dibbit, finally noticed that she was missing and made Olive help find her. He heard of her antics and felt like she should be responsible for helping locate her because she was the reason she was hiding in the first place. Olive would enter the girls' bathroom and she would find Myrtle's body on the floor. The image would be forever burned into her memory, and Myrtle vowed to haunt her for the rest of her life because of what happened to her. Myrtle eventually found out that Rubeus Hagrid, another student, had been removed from Hogwarts for opening the Chamber of Secrets and releasing the yellow-eyed beast that killed her. An older student by the name of Tom Riddle turned him into Headmaster Dibbit. Tom had seen Hagrid roaming around the halls at night. He figures since Hagrid often got in trouble due to his affinity with creatures, he would be the perfect fall guy. Hogwarts was to be closed if Myrtle's death was not solved. Tom couldn't go back to his old life in the orphanage, and he couldn't let it be known that he had caused all the attacks. He blamed Hagrid, and Hogwarts stayed open. A professor named Albus Dumbledore went to Hagrid's hearing to plead in his favor, saying he wasn't to blame. While Hagrid would be expelled and his wand broken, it was worked out that he could stay as a resident of Hogwarts and be trained as a gamekeeper. It's unknown how Myrtle felt about Hagrid coming back, but they were never seen interacting with each other. For years, Myrtle would spend her time following Olive through the school and beyond. It wasn't until one day when Myrtle crashed Olive's brother's wedding that she couldn't take it anymore. Olive went to the Ministry of Magic for help. Myrtle was made to leave Olive alone, so without any other place she wanted to be, she returned to Hogwarts to live out her ghostly life. She was satisfied enough with knowing that Olive was still haunted by the memory of finding her until the day she died. Myrtle still had a hard time in her afterlife. She didn't really socialize with the other ghosts within Hogwarts. Most of the others were much older than her in life. Helena Ravenclaw, otherwise known as the Grey Lady, was the closest to her age, but her afterlife age was centuries beyond Myrtle's. Peeves the Poltergeist, the troublemaker of Hogwarts, often gave Myrtle a hard time. He would poke fun at her, often making her float off in tears. Year after year, new students would arrive at Hogwarts, and they quickly started avoiding her. Nobody really ever used the bathroom where she hangs out. She even got the nickname of Moaning Myrtle because of how often she was heard crying and moaning from her stall. One day, a girl named Hermione Granger tried to use Myrtle's bathroom, but Myrtle wailed at her the whole time she was in there. It was a very uncomfortable interaction. It would be some time, but the pair would end up meeting again elsewhere in the castle. Myrtle was invited to one of the other ghost Death Day parties. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, otherwise known as Nearly Headless Nick, was celebrating his 500th Death Day on October 31st, 1992. He invited Harry Potter, who brought along his friends Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley. Harry had a bit of celebrity awe to him, as when he was a baby, Voldemort, a dark wizard, tried to kill him over a prophecy. Harry would survive, and Voldemort would turn into shadows and vapor and disappear. Voldemort didn't die because of his Horcruxes. The school-age Voldemort went by a different name, which was Tom Riddle, and he was the very boy that Myrtle heard in her bathroom 50 years ago. He had used her death as a way to keep himself alive with one of his Horcruxes. So unknown to Myrtle and Harry, they already had a connection to each other. At Sir Nicholas's party, Hermione saw Myrtle across the room and tried to avoid her, but Peeves noticed this and called over Myrtle. She was a little weepy, and Hermione was trying to be as pleasant as she could. Peeves, of course, is an instigator and would make it seem like Hermione was making fun of her, and silvery tears started to fall down Myrtle's face. She shouts, "Do you think I don't know what people call me behind my back? Fat Myrtle, ugly Myrtle, miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle." Then Peeves did the worst thing possible and added pimply to her list. Myrtle burst into tears and fled the room. She went back into her bathroom, where she wanted to kill herself from the embarrassment and sadness, but then she remembered she was already dead, and there was nothing to do but cry until she felt somewhat better. Later that night, Mrs. Norris, the caretaker's cat, was found petrified outside of her bathroom, with a writing on the wall saying the Chamber of Secrets has been open. Hermione would bring Harry and Ron into Myrtle's bathroom to ask her if she had seen or heard anything funny going on. She told them she didn't notice anything because she was so upset over Peeves at the party. She was getting upset over this conversation and would dive into the toilet and disappear from the trio's sight. It wouldn't be too long before Myrtle had visitors in her bathroom again. Hermione, Harry, and Ron were back and reading through a book. They were going to try to make a polyjuice potion in one of her stalls. The trio were trying to find a way to see if Draco Malfoy, a Slytherin student in their year, knew anything about the opening of the Chamber of Secrets. Over the next month, Hermione would pop in to make sure the potion was brewing correctly, and when it finally was, Ron and Harry joined her in Myrtle's bathroom. Ron and Harry had hair of two Slytherins named Vincent Crabbe and Gregory Goyle. Hermione thought she had a hair from Millicent Bulstrode, a girl from Slytherin. When they started to transform into the Slytherins, Hermione refused to come out of her stall. Ron and Harry would go on their mission while Hermione stayed put. When the two got back and they were in their normal selves again, they noticed Hermione was still locked in her stall. Myrtle would glide through the door to find not her as Millicent or Hermione, but as a human-sized cat. Myrtle became happier than she had been in a long time. There was finally someone worse off and could be teased instead of her. Hermione was taken to the hospital wing, and it would be some time before Ron or Harry saw Myrtle again. However, one day, her bathroom was flooded, and Argus Filch, the caretaker, was shouting while mopping up the water in the hallway. When Filch left to go speak with Headmaster Dumbledore, Ron and Harry heard Myrtle crying. They would go check on her and see what was going on. Myrtle had been crying louder than ever before. Someone had thrown a book at her, and it put her into a spin. When Harry was trying to be nice to her, it took a bad turn. Myrtle got angry. She shouted, "Let's all throw books at Myrtle because she can't feel it. 10 points if you get it through her stomach. 50 points if you get it through her head. Well, ha, 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 ha. What a lovely game, I don't think." While this book was not thrown at her for a game, it was clear that this has happened to her before, probably more than once. Myrtle would point out the book to Ron and Harry since it washed towards the sink. It was an old diary that had a name on it. Ron dropped his voice and said, 50 points if you get it through Myrtle's nose. But Harry just pocketed it. There would be more petrification attacks within Hogwarts, including Nearly Headless Nick and Hermione. With a note found on Hermione, Ron and Harry concluded that Myrtle might have been the girl who died in the Chamber of Secrets when it was first opened. They would take Professor Lockhart with him to her bathroom. When Harry asked how she died, she was almost delighted that someone wanted to talk with her about it. She couldn't say who or what it was, but she said it came from her from by the sinks. Also, the tap with the snake edged on its side had never worked. Harry then made a sound that Myrtle hadn't heard in years. He spoke like the boy who was in the bathroom the day that she died. The sink moved and opened away into a chamber. Ron, Harry, and Lockhart would enter the chamber. Myrtle was convinced that they wouldn't return. They were walking towards their own death. However, not only did all three return, but they had Ginny Weasley, Ron's sister, with them. She had been taken down into the chamber so Voldemort could try to steal her life force and come to life. Myrtle was shocked when she saw Harry and said, "You're alive. I just been thinking, if you had died, you would have been more than welcome to share my toilet." Myrtle had started to develop a liking for Harry. It would be about 2 years before Myrtle interacted with her crush Harry Potter again. It was 1994 and the Triwizard Tournament came to Hogwarts for the first time in years. Harry was now 14, the same age as Myrtle. She had been wishing that he would come visit her, but with him being entered into the tournament, maybe there would be another chance where Harry would end up in danger. Maybe she could end up sharing her toilet with him. Before the tournament's second task, the 4 champions were given a clue about what they would be up against next. It was a golden egg with etches on the side. If you tried to open the egg, it would let out a terrible sound. One of the champions, 17-year-old Hufflepuff student Cedric Diggory, brought the egg to the prefect bathroom with him. It has a large, relaxing tub. Myrtle spotted him from one of the bathroom pipes and saw him put the egg in the water. That was when he figured out his clue. Since Harry had given Cedric a heads up about the dragons in the first task, Cedric told Harry to take the egg into the prefect's bathroom and have a soak and think it over. When Harry did this, Myrtle didn't stay hiding this time. She came out to talk with Harry. She asked him why he stopped visiting her bathroom, and after some back and forth, she would tell Harry to put the egg in the water. Telling Myrtle not to watch, Harry got out of the tub to pick up the egg and bring it back. Myrtle would tell him again to put the egg in the water. Then, rather happily, she told him to put his head under the water with the egg. Myrtle was enjoying the fact that someone was listening and doing what she asked. When Harry had listened to the clue underwater a couple of times, he was going to head out to find people that could help him figure out what lives under the water. Myrtle knew the answer, though, and she wanted to keep Harry with her just a little bit longer. It finally dawned on Harry that there might be mer people in the lake, and Myrtle was rather excited Harry figured it out with her help. She even had a twinkle in her eye. But when Harry asked Myrtle how he was supposed to breathe underwater, she got very upset since she could no longer breathe as a ghost. Her eyes filled with tears, and she called Harry tactless. Myrtle then went off on a tangent. Before Harry left, though, she would ask him if he would come visit her again sometime. He said he would try, and he headed out. When the second task took place, Myrtle would travel through the pipes and pop up in the lake to have a close-up view of the tournament. She would spot Harry in the water, trying to figure out which way to go, and she pointed him in the right direction. She would have gone with him, but any time she ventures that far, she gets chased away. Harry would make it through all of the tournament's tasks, but sadly, Cedric Diggory didn't. However, Cedric chose to move on and not stay as a ghost. Myrtle's thought of having a friend to stay with her was gone again. Another 2 years would pass before Myrtle got to interact with Harry again, but before that, she started to make friends with another boy. Draco Malfoy had been spending a lot of time in one of the boys' bathrooms that Myrtle sometimes visited. Myrtle felt a connection to Draco because, like her, he seemed to be misunderstood, lonely, under a lot of stress, and being bullied. However, his bully wasn't another student or ghost, but Voldemort, the evil dark wizard who was now back in full power. Voldemort had instructed him to kill Dumbledore, the one person he feared most. Draco had already tried roundabout ways to get Dumbledore out of the picture, but nothing had worked. He wouldn't tell Myrtle exactly what he was doing. Myrtle was the only person he could confide in, but he was too scared to tell her everything. One day, Draco was crying in the bathroom, and Myrtle was trying to comfort him. She wanted him to talk things through with her, and maybe she could help. This conversation would be interrupted by Harry. When Draco spots Harry, he tries to cast a hex at him, but misses. Then Harry shoots one back. Myrtle begs for them to stop repeatedly. Harry would cast a spell he never used before, one that he wasn't even sure what would happen. Septum Sepra. Blood started falling from Draco's face and his chest, as if he had just been slashed with a sword. Harry had instant regret when he saw the damage he caused. Myrtle started screaming, "Murder! Murder in the bathroom! Murder!" Professor Snape heard her cries and came into the bathroom. Luckily for Draco, he knew the very counter curse to help him. When he was stable enough, Snape would take him up to the hospital room. While all of this was happening, Myrtle was still sobbing and wailing. Harry would wait there for Snape to return. He didn't have it in him to say anything to Myrtle, so she stayed crying, and Harry stood in shock. When Snape returned, he told Myrtle to leave the bathroom, and she swooped back into her toilet, leaving the room with Harry and Snape silent. This would be the last interaction we see of the young ghost of Myrtle. She didn't stray much from her bathroom again. The first boy she fancied in years ignored her most of the time. Then, when she comes across the second boy she feels connection with, the first boy attacks him. Also, the following year, that second boy let in Death Eaters, and the man who had previously saved his life killed Dumbledore. Things were complicated and confusing outside of her toilet, and maybe it was safer to stay put and not try to make friends. Perhaps after the whole school went through an epic battle of good versus evil, things would become better within the school. Maybe there would be more kindness overall and less bullying, or there would be no more division amongst the students, staff, ghosts, and creatures. Myrtle Warren was so young when her life ended. Being 14 years old, she never had a chance to grow up and see that there was more to life. Then she made the choice to stay as a ghost and would never be reunited with her parents again. It's a choice that you can see weighed on her for most of her afterlife. To be forever stuck in adolescence is not something many people would wish for. Myrtle deserved a better life, and hopefully, one day she will find a connection with another that can bring some light back into her afterlife. Thank you for listening to the life of Myrtle Warren. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please consider giving a like and drop a comment. You can also subscribe for more videos. I'll be back again soon with another video, but until then, keep enjoying the magic.